Greetings, everybody. Welcome to Prospecting with Intelligence. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Alan Tarkowski. I'm our head of business development here at Fortinet for North America and Asia Pacific. And joining us today is Richard Harris, the founder of the Harris Consulting Group. Richard, please give us a quick intro to your business.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it, Alan, and always good to see you. So I run the Harris Consulting Group. We are a sales training and consulting organization that works with organizations in three ways. One, with sales training. That's a big piece of what we do. Two is on the sales operation, sales process, auditing the process, helping to define the process, those kinds of things. And then the third part is some general advisory things that, just some simple things like that. The bulk of my business, the bulk of what we do though, is sales training, whether it's SDRs, AEs, customer success, account managers, whatever your titles are. And our goal is to just teach the reps how to earn the right to ask questions, which questions to ask and when to do it, just in a way to better drive revenue for you.
That's great. Well, I'm super excited for today's session. Thanks again for jumping in here. We're going to be covering off three big topics in really no particular order here, because you'll see how things tend to ebb and flow throughout our conversation. We're going to talk about people. So whether you have internal staff that are dedicated to prospecting for your business, or perhaps if it's yet another hat that one individual or multiple individuals wear in the business, we're going to deep dive into those folks. We're going to talk about process, how you can perhaps deploy a process, tweak a process, or leverage technology to support a process within the business. And then, of course, with people, with process and technology, et cetera, how this is all going to bubble up into pipeline and growth opportunity for your business.
So Alan, I'm gonna interrupt for a second, Alan.
Yeah.
Do they have to flow in this order? Like, does it have to go this way, or what have you seen work? Because you and I both worked in a lot of places. Like, what have you seen work? Does it have to go in this order?
That's a really good question. So I could tell you the number one area for every business where there's insatiable appetite is pipeline. We all want more pipeline and sales to continue growing. And whether that's just revenue growth or organizational growth or both, there's always an insatiable appetite for that. But it takes people, it takes a process.
Yep.
And nowadays it takes technology to be able to get there. And that's really where I think we're going to have a good time diving into a bunch of this.
I just want to chime in on that too, is that there's no real correct order, right? Like, we know what the outcome is, right? If you're early stage, you're driving revenue and pipeline. If you just opened 6 months ago, you don't have time to necessarily overhaul a process or build one. But oftentimes you do need to try to define your process so then you can find the right people. Sometimes you don't know what the process is, so then you bring the people in first to help you find the process, right? So I just want to make sure people know that it ebbs and flows, right? It's a little bit more like jazz, where you just sort of follow the music, right?
Yeah, really well said. I love the jazz reference there. It's interesting because when I look at a lot of, say, smaller businesses, so if you look at some of our smaller partner organizations, whether they're 6 people, 8 people, 20 people, that's a lot of folks wearing a lot of different hats. And you've always got somebody responsible for selling. Maybe it's the founder of that business. Maybe they've hired their first, but we all know that it's pipeline and revenue that's going to continue the growth of that business. And people are a core function of that. Now, if you look at some of the larger organizations where they may have, say, a dedicated marketing organization and leads are flowing into the business, that's good. Salespeople like leads. They only like the really good leads, though, meaning the leads that are ready to buy today. So it's almost order taking in that manner. Yeah. But
that exists, because that's how it all works perfectly.
That's right. That's right. In the perfect world. But nonetheless, you also get leads of people that it may not, in fact, be the right time. But as I always preach to my organization here at Fortinet, when it comes to networking and cybersecurity, my belief is that it's not if your target market is going to go to market for networking or cybersecurity solutions, but rather when. And it's really important for all of us to be there to make it known that we are an option for them to consider, whether it's the services that you're providing to the clients that you support, in addition to, of course, the multiple solutions that Fortinet brings to the table to help you facilitate the needs of your client base. So super important to keep that in mind, because when I think about that from anything from either a prospecting role or a selling role, you really truly have to believe that it's not if, but rather when folks are going to go to market for your respective solutions. All right, moving on. So let's jump into people. So I talked a bit about your prospects and my belief that they're going to go to market for networking and cybersecurity solutions, and they're going to need you as our partners to get out there and deploy these technologies and advise on these technologies. The reality is, though, it's always a challenge to figure out where are you going to find the information of the people that you are trying to connect with. Whether you are a regional technology provider, perhaps in a particular metropolitan area, or if you're an organization of hundreds or perhaps thousands of employees that service nationally, you're still going to need to find relevant titled people that you want to be doing businesses with in the companies that you want to be doing business with. And Richard, there's no shortage of options on the market, right?
Yeah, I'm going to jump in on this. You know, for people who don't know this, some people know it, some people don't. You might start to hear this phrase ICP, your ideal customer profile, right? Now, I've over the last couple of years changed it because I think the better we get with data in sales, the more intelligent we create things. So for me, an ICP is your ideal company profile. Like, who are the companies? What size are they, right? How many employees do they have? Or is it based on revenue? Defining your company profile. Then you have an IPP, which is your ideal persona profile, meaning at those kinds of companies, who are the people we're going at? And if you go back to the ideal company profile, you know, you can segment it by vertical, right? You know, I know Alan at Fortinet, you probably have financial services, online SaaS platforms or travel community or different things, right? So you can define it that way and then figure out each subset. And then within each of those subsets, that's where you start to look for your personas. So I just want to make sure people understand that. And that's a good place to start if you don't know where to start. And then the most important thing is it doesn't have to be 100% accurate. Like, don't let perfection get in the way of good if you're starting to build your processes out now and you're starting to build out a prospecting matrix.
Yeah, that's a Shark Tank principle there. Don't let perfection get in the way of your growth.
Right.
So I love that reference. Mark Cuban likes to bring that one up often. Now, you mentioned the Fortinet group here, you're right. I do have staff on my team that are dedicated to some verticals. So for example, I have staff dedicated to financial services, to healthcare, to the operational technology segments. In addition, I have various market segments. So I've got our small business team that focuses on accounts up to $100 million in revenue, for example. Then I've got a mid-market organization that focuses on accounts, say, up to $1 billion. And then the enterprise organization that is $1 billion plus. Organizationally, that's how we've divided things. But you, for your particular business, you're going to divide things as it makes the best sense. Maybe you found that there are, in fact, a particular industry or vertical that you do really well at servicing. Perhaps it's multi-location businesses in your particular metropolitan area. Whatever it may be, we got to get out there and find those businesses and find the relevant people within those businesses to get out there and to engage.
I'm going to jump in one more time and just sort of, and I think we could say it several times in this session today, is that everything is that Al and I are chatting about is really stage appropriate. What stage are you at, right? Like, that's right. Hey, great if you can be Fortinet, right? And you can have that many resources. Not everybody's there. And we get that. We've both been there and done those things. So take these kinds of things, and this is where perfection doesn't get in the way of good. Be stage appropriate for where you are. Identify a couple of things that you want to start to focus on and start to learn that. And in 3 to 6 months, you'll make an adjustment and you'll do it again and you'll do it again. So, stage appropriateness is really important as you listen to this conversation today.
Yeah, no doubt. Again, as a really large business at Fortinet, we do have these resources to be able to fund and support a really large organization. My background in my career has mostly been spent prior to Fortinet in early stage or startup type companies where we didn't have Fortinet type resources. But we did believe in the BDR or SDR type organization. In a BDR or SDR org, and when we get over, we're going to start moving into staff that you can dedicate towards prospecting and building pipeline for you. These are people where their sole job, 40 hours a week or more, is dedicated to engaging with the people that you want to be doing business with in the companies that you want to be doing business with. And the reality, this is a really heavy lift. It's a hard job. There's a lot of outreach taking place, whether it's cold calling, whether it's cold emailing. If you have the luxury of leads coming into your business, hey, that's always a good time. But oftentimes, there's never enough leads. Or, as we've heard plenty of times before from sales, the leads just aren't that good. The reality is it takes a lot of engagement over time for those leads to frankly mature. In fact, one of the interesting data points that I see here within our business, and I'm sure it applies to many folks here in the session, is that timing is the number one reason that meetings that are set up between our salespeople and our prospective clients don't convert into a sales opportunity. So again, if it's timing, it goes back to my phrase, it's not if, but rather when.
Yep. But it's good to also connect with those people to know it's not the right time, right? Exactly. Now you can, our goal, as much as we want to do business with everyone, that's just not reality. It's our job to figure out, let's find people who want to do business with us. It doesn't mean that you still can't work on some of these other people, but, focus, educate yourself, learn, adjust, grow. That's my piece of feedback on that.
Yeah. So at Fortinet, we call our prospecting team business development reps. Some organizations call them sales development reps. So you have BDRs or SDRs. The reality is the fundamentals are the same for the most part. In some businesses, they may have both BDRs and SDRs. I've seen BDRs be responsible for working leads that come into the company, and their SDR organization is responsible for cold outbounding. Here at Fortinet, we kind of have a unique model. I like to refer to it as all bound. And the reason for our model is because I've actually dedicated staff members to a group of accounts that they are responsible for engaging with. So if they have the benefit of leads coming into the business, great, good for them. If they don't have the benefit of inbound leads coming in, well, they're going to be doing a lot of cold outreach via phone and email.
Yeah, I want to throw one more thing in there too. This is actually how I met you, right? It was way back when. Was you actually had an MDR team, which was considered marketing development, and it's the same function as an SDR or BDR, depending on how you define it. But they end up reporting into marketing more than they do sales. And we hear this question a lot. Well, where should they fall? Well, there's no right or wrong answer there, right? As a typical consultant, it depends.
Yeah.
But I think the answer, there are a couple of answers. One is who has the bandwidth to do it. So sometimes it's marketing, sometimes it's sales. The challenge is that if marketing or sales leadership has never actually overseen this team, you're going to have a problem no matter where you put them, right? So then it becomes back to people. Okay, we might need to hire a senior SDR even though we're not going to make them a manager yet, because we're only going to hire 2 of them, but we need someone who can sort of take the ball and run with it, right? And again, this is that part that's stage appropriate, right? I've worked at organizations where they used to be MDRs and they moved over to sales, or they were in sales and they went back to market. So there's a whole lot of other stuff you got to think about, but I just want to make sure people know that these are the kinds of questions we know people ask as they think about this. And we just want to make sure that, they're all great questions. They're all good questions. It means you're on the right path, right? It means you're on the yellow brick road to get to Oz, and, you're going to get there.
Yeah. One of the topics that comes up, especially for smaller organizations, is, well, I expect my salespeople to do the prospecting.
Totally.
That's their job. While I agree with that to some extent, and depending upon the resources you may or may not have to be able to fund additional headcount in your own organization, it's really important to know that general prospecting is a very heavy lift. The best reps, sales reps that is, weave this into their normal course of business. But we all know not every rep is a unicorn, the best, capital T, capital B rep out there. So it is something to take into consideration. Just how much time will, in fact, a sales rep that is responsible for delivering revenue, delivering those dollars, doing the deals, really be able to spend on prospecting and building their own pipeline? I could tell you that through my history of managing sales organizations and salespeople, prospecting is the number one least interesting part of their job in many cases.
Yep.
Unless, of course, you have that unicorn rep.
Yeah. There's a couple of thoughts. So one, that doesn't mean, I think, Alan, you would agree that a top rep, or even, not your top rep, but just a sales rep, doesn't focus on their top 25, right? Like they need to make those efforts, right?
I agree.
The other reason, and the reason why, aside from the fact they don't like it, one, it's very expensive, right? If you're paying a salesperson $100,000 a year just in base salary, you should be able to find an SDR, BDR in the $50,000 to $60,000 range, depending on what part of the country you're in. So in theory, you could hire 2 people to try and set appointments for the price of 1 AE. So if you don't have a big enough pipeline, and, I see this all the time where people have got 20 AEs and 10 SDRs. And I'm like, wait, that's upside down. Unless all 20 AEs actually are crushing quota, right? Otherwise you flip it and you make it so much so that the AEs say, oh my God, I can't handle one more meeting, right? Like that's where, to me, that's where you're really trying to drive growth, and it's a more cost affordable way. And then there's this alignment, how many SDRs to AEs and things like these are all those questions, right? In my perfect world, it's 1-to-1, right? I want 1 SDR to 1 AE. Doesn't always work that way. If it's 1 SDR to 4 AEs, I get really nervous. 3 makes me nervous too. 1 to 2 is okay, because now all of a sudden you've got this SDR who's got to handle things 4 different ways. Like who would want that function? Like, I don't know anybody who wants to have 4 bosses, So again, just things to think about for people. It also doesn't mean it won't work. There are plenty of companies where if 1 to 4 works, and if it works for you, don't change it just because Richard and Alan showed up and started nodding heads, right? So
that's right.
So
yeah, and the reality is, so long as your salespeople are well fed. I still remember back, gosh, must have been 8 years ago, where I came into the office early morning and I sat down next to my rep and said, hey man, how's it going? How's your day? What you got going on? He's like, I've got 8 hours of back-to-back demos. And I was like, sweet, that is great. I was thrilled for him, but he was starting to feel a little broken.
Yes.
After multiple days of 8 hours of back-to-back demos. So guess what? I created an environment, that created the environment where I knew we could add salespeople, because those reps were stuffed with opportunity there in meetings.
In hindsight, Alan, when would you have hired? Because by the time you get to 8, right, 8 in a row in a day, in hindsight, what would be your trigger to go, okay, he's got 4 today, or he's got 10 this week, And again, I also think it can depend on, is it a, a large enterprise sale versus a smaller sale, your average
Yeah.
sales price. But in hindsight, learning from that, when would you want to start to, think about headcount?
It's interesting. So we're gonna move into the process bit a little bit here. So one of the triggers was say, okay, yes, I could keep the salesperson busy talking to people all day, but are those conversations material enough where they're actually then transferring into sales qualified opportunities, where there are actual dollars attached to a sales opportunity with that account? So it's one thing to burn a salesperson's time just talking to people all day, which if not converting in a sales opportunity, something's going on there. You need to figure out what that may be. But if you're having a material conversion rate and serious decisions like an analyst type firm, they say that 60% of sales meetings, first sales meetings that turn into sales opportunities is considered best in class. So I would say that if you're in that 50, 60% range of a meeting with a sales rep that turns into a sales opportunity that they're committed to make a real strong play for, then you're got a really strong signal that you should likely be investing in additional salespeople.
That's great. I love that. So
yeah, and it's interesting because oftentimes when you actually see that data or recognize that data, you may be a little late.
That's what I was waiting for. Like at 8 meetings in a day, that felt late, right?
Yeah.
So,
Oh yeah.
so how do we try to, and we don't want to overhire either, right? Like we don't want to do
True.
that because we don't want to lay people off. But
Yeah.
how do we do this supportively? So I hope this resonates for folks on the call.
Yeah, I agree. There's some level of capital efficiency there, right? Or it's like, do I
Mm-hmm.
keep investing in more sales? It's like, well, we keep getting really good meetings, and these meetings are turning into opportunities. Sales is happy; they're closing at a good rate, whatever good rate is defined in your business. It feels like there's more fuel to add to the sales fire, from my point of view. So let's talk about process. So we dipped into it a little bit here, which is good. So you've got this function, this BDR or SDR function that is out there making calls, they're sending emails, they're pitching why your business, why now, and the people they're talking to are saying, yeah, let's have a chat. There may be something that I need some help with. Great. So that BDR or SDR, they set a meeting for the sales rep to get out there and have a conversation with that prospect. And for the most part here in this COVID era, we're all doing it virtually here over Zoom. But that said, there is a wealth of opportunity to leverage these digital environments to continually engage with folks.
Yeah.
Which then takes us, I think, into the technology part.
I want to pause right there. I want to talk about process
Sure.
for a second, right?
Yeah.
There's a couple of things, particularly on the prospecting side. The data shows that it takes 16 touches, give or take, to get someone to say yes to a meeting, right? Unless and hopefully you have technology to shorten that. But even our best in class people that Alan and I know, and I don't know what it takes for you, Alan, I don't know if you're allowed to share it, but 16 touches, that's one reason a salesperson is not going to be good at this. Right?
Yeah.
Now, a touch can be a phone call where you leave a message. Another touch could be a phone call where you don't leave a message, right? So it's a touch. It's an attempt to touch. And it could be LinkedIn, it could be Twitter, it can be email, it can be phone call. It's an omni-channel approach to prospecting. And so I think you need to understand that as you think about your process. Overall, as I work with companies, this is every sales process I've ever seen. People call it different things, but there's sort of pre-qualification, which is often where this SDR, BDR lives, stage 0, right? It's not in the pipeline. There's stage 1, which is qualification. There's stage 2, that's discovery. There's stage 3, which is selection. There's stage 4, which is negotiation. And there's stage 5, which is closing, right? And as you build a process and you think about creating a process, you want to try and define what's the exit criteria I need to go from stage 0 to stage 1, from stage 1 to stage 2, stage 2 to stage 3, and get as specific as you can, right? If and if people say, I love, people love to say, well, my AE wants to have confirmed timeline before they take the first meeting. I'm like, really? Like, come on, you can't do that. That's not what that's way too soon, right? So you have to define what pieces you want as exit criteria in your process. So anyway, so it's pre-qual, qualification, discovery, selection, negotiation, and closing, and then build out your exit criteria. So now to do that and make it well, and you've got 16 touches. Now, Alan, I'll turn back to you about technology, because this
thank you.
is how you accelerate.
16 touches. That's a lot of work. And what we typically find is that, hey, a lead comes into the business, a salesperson gets that lead, they make a call, they leave a voicemail, they send an email. Hey, what happened to that lead? Somebody asks in the business. And the salesperson says, I called him, I left a voicemail, I sent him an email, I never heard back.
Right.
That was only 2 of 16 touches.
Right. And that's on an inbound. That could happen on someone who came in inbound, much less outbound, right?
Yeah, this is literally somebody that may have said, hey, I want a demo of your solutions. Hey, I need help with setting up a firewall in my business. Or, hey, I had a ransomware attack. Help me.
Yeah. Hey, Alan, I do have a question for you. I know you have accelerated technology, right?
Yeah.
But back to the process, because this is how you chose your technology. And since these are your partners, what do you guys think your average touch count is to get the first meeting? Is it 16, or have you, again, if your messaging is getting better and your process gets better, what are you guys seeing? Because I think they'd love to know what you guys are experiencing.
Yeah, I would say on average, it's about 6 touches.
6
and
touches.
To your point, these are emails, these are call touches, and even LinkedIn. And a LinkedIn touch may be something as simple as viewing a person's profile, or commenting on something the person may have posted, or liking a post of theirs. It's a very light but yet simple and effective touch.
Just so I know people are going to get happy ears going, sweet, 6. How long did it take you to get there? Because I know it didn't start there.
Yeah, wow. Gosh, let's remember that's an average, right? So we can get lucky, and after the first email, they're saying, hey, look, either, yeah, let's talk, or no, we don't have anything going on. Reach back out to me in August.
Right. But do you think like 2 years ago, do you think it was still 6, or do you think because of refinement of message, stronger relationships? Look, and by the way, one of the touches may be a partner, right? One of these people on the phone, that can be a legitimate touch. Vice versa.
Absolutely.
Partner could try to use Fortinet as a legitimate touch. So,
yeah, no doubt. It's interesting. In the COVID era, we are in that 6 range. Previously, though, I would actually have to defer to the various market segments. Yeah. Because I can't tell you, in the SMB, it tends to take a couple less touches or fewer touches than it does in the enterprise. The enterprise tends to be more challenging with regard to yielding responses than in many cases the SMB, for example.
Yep. So thanks for sharing that. I think that's helpful.
Yeah, no, thanks for bringing the data points up. Those are fantastic, and really, really paints a good picture just how much work this actually is, getting out there and getting engaged with prospects. And there's a lot of technology to get that done. I mean, you mentioned some stats when we talked the other day, Richard. How many sales tech vendors are out there?
Yeah, there's at least 1,000, and they're in 45 categories. So there's sales enablement, which is something like an outreach or a sales loft, where you can build out a touch. It's called a sequence or a cadence of these 16 touches. You can build the message in, and you don't want to put it on autopilot, but 80% of the message is there for you. And so you can just walk in each day and go, oh, I need to talk to this person, and they're on this step of the cadence, and they're on this step, and they're on this step. So it helps you manage that, right? That's sales engagement. There's video prospecting tools out there. There's LinkedIn Sales Navigator is another one, but there's so many tools out there that across so many categories. It's a bit crazy, right?
Yeah. I think for this audience, one of the leave behinds that I hope everybody takes with them is that it's absolutely worth looking into these sales engagement platforms like SalesLoft, Outreach, Groove is another. I think they're
Yep.
doing a good job for the SMB space.
Yep. Vanilla
And
Soft
these,
is good. Yep. There's several of them. There's some great ones.
yeah, and all these organizations sit on top of your existing CRM application. If you don't have a CRM application, action item after this session,
Step
look
one.
into getting one.
Number
That's
one
right.
thing, you gotta have this so that you can better manage the process and your deals and your customers and clients, right?
That's right.
Excel is, a lot of people still use Excel, right? I get it.
Absolutely.
But I can promise you, if you can put it in Excel, you can put it in a CRM, and it helps you remember and set tasks and all these great things. So take a look at all those things. There's obviously Salesforce, HubSpot's another one we like. Zoho is one.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of the other? I can't think of the other ones. I mean, believe me, there's tons of them, but
Yeah, no shortage of options depending
no
upon the
shortage.
size
Yeah.
of your business.
Yep.
And each one is going to have a price point that will resonate with your business as well.
Yep.
So, which then takes us to execution, because leveraging all of this data, applying a process to it, even if that process is, I know I'm going to execute 16 touches over some period of time to the prospects in my target accounts. Perfect. You now have a prescriptive approach with messaging that hopefully applies to that organization and people within that organization that you're reaching out to, that then could be systematically executed over time, which is really critical. Again, if we're out there looking to make 16 touches, no Excel spreadsheet is going to be able to do that elegantly.
No
That'll be an
human is.
extraordinary, yeah,
Right.
an extraordinary waste of time.
Yeah. There is a new tool out there that I know. It's called Regie, Regie, and it bolts, so Outreach bolts onto HubSpot or CRM, your Salesforce. Then this bolts onto your Outreach or SalesLoft, and it will actually define your cadence and sequence.
Wow.
It will write it for you. It will put in the right value props, and it will tell you that, oh, you want 9 touches over 15 days, you want 12 touches over 18 days. Like, it literally, you just go and plug it in, and it's the AI on it's incredible. It's called Regie. So if you haven't checked that out, yeah, it's pretty cool. Actually, I don't think I've told you about it. You need to go. We need to get a couple of your folks on it and see if they like it.
All right. So now I have a task after this call as well. The reality is, you could be on a really advanced side. You could just be getting started. All good. Just make an effort here, because there's no shortage of solutions out there to help you, but choose wisely. One of the things that I tend to have to do is temper the technologies that I pursue for our business to use, because I don't want to overwhelm my staff members with technology. I need to be sure to give them the room and space with which to execute. Yep. And that execution is, again, finding prospects, using some of these prospecting tools that we talked about, like ZoomInfo, like Lead 411, Seamless. I mean, there are endless contact databases out there that you could subscribe to. Getting those records of relevant individuals into your CRM, and then getting a resource on your side to engage with those people over time.
Yeah, there's a couple other things I'll throw in there too. Try not to have your sales team or SDRs be data entry. Like, you didn't hire people to put phone numbers and hunt them down, because that can take forever. You hired them to make phone calls and set meetings. So be conscious of that. Stage appropriate. Look, if you're brand new or you're just a smaller company, I get it, right? Like, that's fine. Just be mindful to the human you're working with. The other thing is, there are some really good organizations, one called Alley-Oop and another one called Alti Sales, where you can outsource this function, right? You don't have, you can do this in-house. Each one's going to have a different kind of heavy lift. you're going to have to dedicate time and resources. You're still going to have to train the people at these two outsourced places. You know, they got to know your value proposition, and they got to know Fortinet, you know, enough to be able to set that meeting for you the way you need it to be done, but it can be done. Where the acceleration comes is that, you know, it can take 2 to 3 months to, you know, place a job, get it approved, interview, hire. Someone's got to give 2 weeks notice. An outsource agency, that's done. That's done in a day or two. So you can actually move into the other things weeks ahead of time if you do it internal. There's no right or wrong answer. You need to move wisely and think wisely about who you work with, check references always. And so anyway, so I just wanted to bring up that it doesn't have to be in-house. There are options out of house, and just be conscious of the differences.
Yeah, and I've seen that outsource model work for whether it's a smaller business, whatever size, 10, 20, 100 people, up to and through major enterprises.
I've also seen it not work. Like I've seen the bad ones. So that's why you just need to be really smart about it, and like just drill and grill these folks if you're going to talk to them, right? You know, you're kind of marrying them. You're going to spend as much with them as you might on, you know, maybe an engagement ring or more. So,
yeah, fair.
You know, make sure you're ready to get married. So.
That's right. To your point, you got to really dig in with these folks, because you want them to be reflecting the services, solutions, et cetera, that your business is providing. All right. Everything we've talked about yields pipeline. So the good thing is that we are out there, we're engaging with the people we want to be doing business with and companies that we want to be doing business with. We've hopefully created some scale there. So whether it's one person or multiple people, or perhaps multiple people plus an outsourced agency, only an outsourced agency, whatever it may be, we are continually feeding our salespeople with qualified conversations. That's key. And we know then, and you should measure and monitor what percentage of those conversations that your salespeople are having with your prospects actually turn into qualified sales opportunities that you are looking to earn. And once you understand that conversion rate, then you start getting some predictability. All right, if I keep feeding my sales organization with all of these meetings, and I know that these meetings, some percentage are turning into opportunities, then we know some percentage of those turn into closed won business for us. We have a much better rhythm towards understanding our revenue production in the business, a la our sales forecast.
Yeah, I think the thing I want to just, you know, remind people too is that the goal of forecast is to keep working towards greater accuracy. Not that it's always going to be that you're going to hit the number. Over time, you get there. Although, you know, I think Alan commits every week to, you know, a number, right? And he waves his magic wand and makes it work. But
yeah, I used the crystal ball in the photo there.
Right, exactly. But it doesn't always, it's not always like that. So I just want to make sure people understand too, as you start to look at forecasting, our goal is to improve our forecasting ability, right? Closer to, you know, 90%, 95%, 99%. You know, if you get it to 100%, well, that's great. It just means you're, you know, I don't mind if your goals are too low, but you know, that there's other things, right? So just make sure that people are driving towards that. I think that's really important.
Well, great. Richard, I think it's about our time. I really appreciate the insights that you shared today.
Yeah.
Thank you, everybody, for joining our session.
Thanks for having me, Alan. I appreciate it. And thanks to all your partners working with you and for y'all giving me a little bit of time too.
Yeah, of course. Really, really great spending time together. You're free to connect with me on LinkedIn. Again, my name is Alan Tarkowski, and we've got Richard Harris here from the Harris Consulting Group. He does a wealth of activity online. You've got a podcast, I know. Gosh, you do all sorts of stuff to help further our trade here within the sales world. So thank you for that. He's definitely worth a follow. And thanks again for joining this session. Appreciate you being a Fortinet partner, and we'll be talking again soon.
Bye-bye.